Family. Picard and the crew take some shore leave on Earth, each reflecting on the Borg encounter in their own way.
We start out with the Enterprise being repaired and upgraded as a result of the Borg encounter, and I was glad that they were following up on that. I was kind of afraid it was just going to be a thing that happened, like most other episodes.
The crew's going down to Earth for shore leave, and Worf's parents, the Roshenkos, are on the list of visitors. He seems to not want to see them.
It is inappropriate for a Klingon to receive family while on duty.
Picard is going to visit his home village in France, and Troy is concerned that he's still dealing with being Borgified, which would make sense, but she seems to be basing her conclusion on the fact that he's going home for the first time in 20 years.
Look, I'm better.
Worf is getting antsy waiting for his parents to board the Enterprise, and he makes a racist comment about them being late.
My mother is never on time. It is so human of her.
Worf's parents are good-natured and pretty goofy, but I like them.
And I was surprised to find that they had Russian accents, and that their personalities were so strong, considering how reserved Worf is.
Picard is back in France.
All right, whoever you are, I can hear you. Oh, good Lord. A highwayman.
It turns out to be his nephew, Rene.
Picard seems overly friendly with him for someone that he doesn't personally know, and him supposedly not liking kids.
Maybe the Borg totally altered his personality.
That could be a whole new subplot. I liked when Rene was asking him what the terms his brother used to describe him meant.
You don't seem so arrow, you know.
Arrogant?
Yes, arrogant.
Picard meets his brother's wife, Marie, who is played by Samantha Eggar, who I knew from The Brood.
I want to go with you wherever you go.
Do you?
Yes.
Then look!
The Brood.
Picard meets with his brother, Robert, and they obviously have a great relationship.
It's, good to see you.
We get a cool matte painting when they zoom out there. Back on the Enterprise, Beverly receives a container that she'd had in storage of things relating to her deceased husband, Jack. She finds a holographic message that he had recorded for Wesley when he was born.
I just don't know if it'll do more harm than good. Wesley's finally come to terms with his father's death.
Worf's parents are telling embarrassing stories about him to Geordi while they tour the ship.
And while everything seems okay, his parents are actually a little bit concerned.
If you have a couple of minutes, there's something else I want to ask you.
Sure, Chief.
It's about my son.
Robert is pretty anti-technology.
The danger of losing those values which we hold most precious.
Which has long been a point of contention between the two brothers, even more so now that Robert is afraid of Picard's influence on Rene.
Rene talks to Picard.
I wrote a report on starships for school.
And he won a ribbon for it.
Picard mentions that he did the same thing, and Robert seems jealous of his success.
The next day, Picard's talking to a friend, and it's revealed that the government wants him to take over a project.
They want to raise up part of the ocean floor as a new continent.
Picard initially says no, but he's actually thinking about it.
Meanwhile, Worf is still being embarrassed by his parents, but he is getting a bit more used to them being on the ship, and he leaves them with Guinan.
His parents are still anxious about talking to him about why they're really there.
Maybe we should just leave it alone.
I can't just leave it alone. I'm his mother.
Picard reveals to Marie that he is considering the position with the government project, and his friend comes in and basically says that he's set up a meeting, which upsets Picard because he hadn't expected that, but he agrees to go anyway.
And all of this while he's still wrestling with his inner conflicts.
Worf's parents visit him in his quarters. It's the first time we see his quarters, and we see that he's a fan of modern art.
Yeah, what the hell is that chair? His parents reveal that while they don't fully understand his dishonor, they will support him no matter what.
And despite his protests, it does seem to ease his struggles. Robert talks to Picard about synthahol and how much better real wine is, and he brings up Picard's Borgification and tries to get him riled up.
He's really getting under his skin, and they both finally let decades of resentment boil over.
They start fighting in the mud in an epic battle scene.
Damn you!
Which finally lets Picard have his emotional release and come to terms with his trauma.
And Robert reveals that that was his goal all along. When Marie comes home later, Picard tells her he's going to cancel the government meeting so he can go back to the Enterprise.
We finally get to see what Jack's message was for Wesley, which is very emotional. We've already seen how Wesley has felt about his father's death in The Bonding,
and in Coming of Age, where he felt Picard was responsible.
so this instance doesn't have as much impact as it could have.
It felt like it didn't add anything to what we already knew.
But it wasn't bad.
Right. Picard parts on good terms with his brother, who gives him a bottle of wine.
Family. Overall,
This episode was exactly what I've hoped for a while now. An episode that was entirely focused on characters without any threats. We've had a few episodes that came close to that, but this was the first one that went all the way. I think it came at a good time after the huge extended threat of the Borg. My only problem was that everything was a bit too simplistic.
typical. Why don't we just get a recording of you saying that over and over again?
Picard's brother felt very one note until the very end of the episode. All he was jealous of Picard's success with everything. And Picard's true feelings mostly stayed in the background. We finally see him breaking down a little bit at the end, but it's kind of like we're looking at everything from the outside. Worf's parents often felt more like caricatures than real people, although I still thought they were okay. And Wesley's subplot was very underdeveloped. It felt like they just had a few minutes left and said, crap, we gotta stick something in there that fits the theme of the episode. But overall, it was still a good, satisfying episode. I gave it a B. It did leave me wondering, though, whatever happened with Riker's option to get his own ship. I feel like that was a big thing before, and they didn't even bring it up at all in this episode.
Now see, I felt that Robert and Picard were supposed to feel one-dimensional until they had that emotional release between them, because they're keeping it all bottled up inside.
It's too much to extend over an entire episode, though.
They got 45 minutes.
Too much of the same for too long.
I disagree. I gave it a B+. This episode felt very much like an epilogue for The Best of Both Worlds, which I was definitely okay with. It dealt with real things in a real way after some catastrophic events. It would have been stupid to say, well, we're done with that and back to doing regular stuff again. I like how the characters are established enough that we are actually able to explore their family relationships. It's a good indicator that the show has done a decent job of making them real people and making us care. It focused mostly on just Picard and just Worf. I wish we had gotten a little more from the other characters, and I thought it was convenient that Troy happened to be in the right place at the right time to psychologize everything. The episode really was nothing but conversations, but pretty much all of them were good, and they felt like they had purpose. I was pleasantly surprised. So season 4 is off to a good start.